and it's where I started storytelling. It's the greatest of all the Icelandic sagas is Njal's Saga. Well, it's certainly the longest. And it was the first I ever read. And central to Njal's Saga is the cataclysmic events that shook Iceland around the millennial year, around the year 1000. Half the saga is pagan, and half the saga is Christian. And there is this critical contrast between two deaths. The death of Gunnar, who dies pagan, and the burning of Njal, who dies a Christian. And there's a contrast that runs between them. Now, this story club, I'm going to do the death of Gunnar. It will take a while. Next time I'll do the death of Njal. Now, if none of you know anything about Anglo-Saxon saga, Anglo-Saxon Icelandic sagas, I'd probably better warn you. They make Ibsen look funny. It's not a bundle of laughs. And I haven't read this since I was about 14. So, most of this is probably nothing to do with the saga. So don't go off and read the saga thinking, hang on, he's changed it. Yes, I have. Right. The death of Gunnar. Now that Egil was dead, Gunnar, 7 foot tall, as beautiful as God's God, and as strong as a giant, was the greatest hero in all of Iceland. He had been abroad for many years, serving with King Harald and King Svein, and even, they said, King Edgar. But now he was back to the farm in Snædefell. The farm, he, the first in all the men in Iceland, had been born there. For all those who are older had come from Norway, had come from Denmark. But he was born in the rocky hills of his home. And he made the farm prosperous. And he soon looked for a wife. And the woman he chose was the most beautiful woman in all of Iceland, Gunhild. Now Gunhild had a checkered old history. She had had 4 husbands, and all the husbands had died. Some men had said had been poisoned, and others had been found with their heads caved in, and they whispered that she had a foster father from the old folk who lived up in the rocks and in the ice. Trollskin by name. But Gunnar was scared of nothing. And in spite of the warning of his old friend Njal the beardless, Njal the man of peace, Njal the great lawgiver, he married Gunhild and was happy. Now, every day he would go out to tend the cattle all day long. And after they'd been married for about a month, who should come creeping through the shadows from the rock and from the ice but Trollskill. And Trollskill came into the house and said to Gunhild, "Where's he going? Do you know where he goes?" And Gunhild says, "He goes to look after the cattle." He tells that to the other woman, the other side of the valley. "I bet you he does. Ask him and see what he does to you." And Gunhild said, "All right, foster father, I will." And so it was. The next day when Gunnar was going out, she stood before the gate and said, "I'm not going to let you go. Tell me where you go." And Gunnar said, "I go to tend the cattle." And Gunhild said, "I will not let you go. The cattle need tending. Our wealth depends on it," said Gunnar, and pushed her aside. Now he meant it to be a gentle push, but he was a man as strong as a giant. And she fell back and cut her head, and he was gone. And as she was getting up, who do you think was standing before her? But Trollskill. And Trollskill said, "I told you. Look what he has done to you. He has made you bleed. But I will serve him as he has served you." And before she could reply, Trollskill was gone. And all day Gunhild wondered what to do and what to say. But come evening, Gunnar came back, and he was so nice and so kind, she couldn't say anything. And the next day, he took her to visit the cattle, and she saw they were real. And all week, she went to visit with him. The first day, though, she did not come. Gunnar was riding home, and the sun was beginning to set. He was riding through a rocky valley, lined with stones, and a little stone fell down, and he looked up and he saw a shifting shadow moving down from the rock and through the ice, and he thought someone was on foot. and he stood. All his senses sprung. Looking, but still it came as a surprise when the man leapt out of the darkness. Leapt with a great axe, the size of a thunderbolt, driving it down to Gunnar's head. But Gunnar was not now the greatest man in Iceland for no reason. He was not a man who could play such a trick with. He caught the axe, he broke it, although it was made of cast iron, over his knee, and he threw 2 parts at the man who was attacking him, who was covered in black shadow, covered in a mask so you could not see his face. Full in that shadow face he threw the halves of the axe, crushing it so that even its mother would not recognize it. And then he took the body back to his farm, and he warned Gunhild. And Gunhild looked at it and said, "I think that is my foster father. I think that is Trollskilling." And she rode off with the body. And she was disappeared for a day and a night. And when she came back, Gunnar noticed her face seemed to be caked in tears and in blood. And Gunnar said, "I am sorry. I will pay what anybody asks me. I will do what I must. But blood will have blood. And the gods watch the revenges ripple out." Trollskill's relatives would not accept payment. And everyone knew what that meant. For in those days, the relatives need not accept the blood gift, but might seek revenge. And Trollskill, although he was a man of the mountains, seemed to have many relatives who claimed his kinship. And one by one, they came. And Gunnar was attacked by day and by night, in the hills and in the forests, on the paths and down by the strand. But Gunnar was not a man who you could tackle lightly. And when they came in pairs, or even groups, with a heavy heart he killed them. But blood will have blood, and gradually the net expanded. Gradually more and more people were killed. Gradually more and more relatives swore their vengeance on Gunnar. Until it seemed to the men of Iceland that not a month passed before another murder happened. Not a week passed. And so it was one autumn. They summoned Gunnar to the great old thing. And Gunnar stood silent before them, penitent, rocking back and forth, saying nothing. It was not he who said anything, but rather beardless Njal, the man of peace, the lawgiver, and his 4 great sons, led by the fearsome Skarpahen, who stood up for their friend Gunnar and said it is not his fault. But the chieftains of Iceland said, his fault or no, as long as he stays with us, death happens. He must go with, or be with us no more. And Njal said, but it would not be just to kill him. To kill him would be murder, whether it is done by us, the lawgivers of this nation, or by some relative of Trollskilling. And so it was. The great chieftains agreed that Gunnar was declared an outlaw, but he would only be an outlaw from the New Year's Day. If he fled, if he accepted exile, if he went to serve some great king, his life would be spared and his land would not be forfeit. And Gunnar nodded his head and he rode off to his farm.